Well, yes, I am an activist, but I consider myself a lawyer first and foremost. My job is being a lawyer, although it is true that in some occasions I have presented to others as an activist and a lawyer. On the internet, I am also seen as both an activist and a lawyer as well. Aside from being a lawyer, I have participated in several social activist groups and have also taken initiative with new social movements as well as political acts, and this is because I have felt a connection or a tie with these types of groups. I believe this is linked to whatever happens to be popular in the time frame that we live in. There are some generations that have used terms like militants, but now the word activist seems to be what the in thing is. Personally, I think that it should be something neutral that allows you to go beyond what can be strictly defined by whatever your professional circle might be. Well, personally, I have participated in groups ranging from student activist movements to the right to housing movements, which is now called the squatter or the Ocupa movement. I have also been in a cultural center which promotes social and political activities. And well, currently I am linked to the Popular Unity Candidates or group of Barcelona.
En abstracto, pues no sé, claro, yo entiendo que...
I think that maybe these people are the most critical with the government. And from what I've experienced, they share a common view in regards to politics, which in this case would obviously be the left-wing political parties. These social movements have stemmed from these political views. These people most likely come from the same generation, the generation that previously did not get the chance to participate in the pacts that were made in '78. Obviously, there's a shared political culture with an interest in forming horizontal types of assemblies, with a democratic participation starting from the bottom up. Also, I think we can say that we have shied away from the traditional political parties and with a great sensitivity towards all human social right ideas and movements, such as the right to a proper job, the right to a proper home, environmental rights, and so on. The problem is that there is a decay in regards to some of these rights that supposedly were already taking place, and therefore these movements have had to step up their participation in bringing these types of things that we need back. A good example of all of this is a right to a proper education or proper schooling, obviously.
Yo también creo que...
Yes, well, I think it depends on the perspective from which it is analyzed. The social movements have gone through a phase where the participants were clearly political positions, and perhaps now the profile of a social movement also includes people that previously weren't very politically established in their opinions and have used this mean as a way of gaining access to power, to politics, and to different types of things. Therefore, I think we can say that this is very different from what previous squatter or ocupa and environmental groups have, for example, done. Depends on the glasses with which you look at things, obviously. Well, I can say that what I least like is inequality in all of its senses, especially the inequality that causes big economical gaps between the poor and the rich, as well as between men and women, and locals and immigrants. The inequality also translates over to many other fields. This and the injustices are what most bother me and motivate me to keep working and to keep doing what I do for a living, because I personally don't like seeing these things, and even though I may not be affected by them, it hurts me to see that other people are when they're usually innocent bystanders.
Sí, bueno, yo creo que...
Well, I feel like it is the only option we have left now. We have very few cards in our deck to play if this were a game. On one hand, they work to generate a political culture, these social movements. What they do is they give power to the people and to help create a different outlook than those that are shown in the press, the newspapers, the TV shows. I think it's very interesting that these movements help relieve the situation that some people are in because of the capitalist society that we currently live in. Obviously, the consequences of all of these acts that the social movements take place in are very slow and they work very step by step. But however, I believe we need to keep working on making these social movements more massive and more spread out to help the people.
Que sí, yo creo que sí. Bueno,
Well, personally, I believe they are two sides of the same coin. One cannot be separated from the other. The pro-independence movements have a lot to do with the ideas that the social movements propose. They are not unlinked from each other, they go connected. I do believe that many people that are involved in social movements also support pro-independence ideas. Many political parties, such as the one I am linked to, have been known for being composed of members that have come from these social activist groups. There's a great portion or part of social activist members with pro-independence ideas. Yes, I definitely think that this is like this. But because the things are linked, not because it necessarily has to be that way or because someone dictates that it needs to be like this. One thing that I would like to make clear, though, is that even though maybe we can say that a great chunk of people that are in social activist movements are also in pro-independent ones, there are also people that are not. We can't just place people into categories because definitely social activist movements have not been officially declared or called off as belonging to one particular political group or another. When you read about things on the press or on TV, you might have a different idea of what this is like, but there is no official link between any social activist movement, at least the ones that I am part of, or any political particular groups. Besides, I don't believe that social movement groups should have clear political ties because personally, if this were something official, that would be a very wicked thing to do. Pro-independence is just something that is shared by some people and is not shared by others. It also depends on the geographical area in which we are moving in, obviously. There's a little bit of everything. Some members are proclaimed anarchists, others have supported communism, but it just so happens that social movement groups are linked to pro-independence ideas for some reason. However, there are people with different sensibilities and different thoughts, and personally what I believe is that we just try to live together or to come together in any type of way, shape or form that we see possible. Yes, the idea is to look for common places of work to come together, whether this is for a special topic or a special day that is planned. For example, assemblies are made and other types of events. The environment that is created here definitely helps you feel more comfortable. Each group, whether it is a feminist group or an environmental group, whether it is big or it is small, whether it is local or whether it is national, all of these groups can come together, sit at a table, and prep for different kinds of events, such as assemblies and other types of events and days that are special. And I think that's very interesting to see in these social movements, and it's something very curious, to say it in a form. No, I think that we have not made advances with that. We are less than 100 kilometers away from the French border, and the relationship that we personally have with the French social activist groups is practically non-existent. This definitely is a loss for us because we have seen the way that they work. I remember, for example, in one occasion, in 2002, where there were many protests and social conflicts, and there was unity with the Southern French movements in regards to the social movements here in Spain. We got to see that the way that they worked was very organized, very structured, and I feel like they had many characteristics that we could probably benefit from, and vice versa. Personally, it's sad not to work together with these type of social activist groups more often, especially outside of Spain. The problem is it's hard to step out of the national bubble that we are placed in, so to speak. I personally believe that we have taken some steps forward in regards to the relationship we have with social activist groups in Europe, but these type of advances or steps forward are very weak, and sometimes they're also slow.
Muy débil. Bueno, cada día más y las medidas.
Yes, definitely. I think that every day it is more and more common. The laws are turning on this matter very harshly. For example, the Supreme Court made a sentencing on the case of the assault on the parliament here in Barcelona. And the issue with this is that later on you examine the damage, whether it's to property or to people, and you realize that the damage was definitely blown out of proportion. The worst part out of all of this is that people are actually sentenced to jail for being part of these protests, which, okay, let's be honest, they're obviously made with a very defined purpose and a very defined meaning, but aside from that, I personally don't think that it is very appropriate or very correct for these protests or these things or these types of events to end with jail sentencings for these types of people.
Bueno, yo he vivido siempre en una sociedad muy laica.
Well, personally, I have always grown up in a laical background. What I see is that generally the social movements that I belong to are very separated from the religious type topics, you know? They don't want maybe to mix for some reason. I can see that, for example, there's a Christian movement that has participated in the events that I have been involved in. And like I was saying, these Christian movements, they sometimes have participated in social activist movements, and they've also cooperated with us, but generally what my opinion would be is that this religious phenomenon is very separated from the different types of social movements, and it's not something that perhaps goes together.